Hello fellow creature, welcome back to Rooftop Talks. My roof is out there, it's cold, it's winter. Today I want to talk about something that I've already said on this channel, but like a lot of topics that are vastly misunderstood and are very important, it always bears repeating until this becomes common knowledge and a common understanding by people. I'm going to have to repeat it for as many times as is needed. Vegans only have one thing in common. First of all, let's take a step back. Before we talk about vegans, let's talk about veganism. What is veganism? Now, if you ask a person on the street, what is veganism? What are they going to say? They're going to say, oh, they don't eat meat, and I think they extend that maybe to dairy. Okay? Wrong. Veganism, it's a doctrine that mankind should live without exploiting animals. That's all it is. That's all it is. Veganism is that you shouldn't use animals for personal gain at the animal's expense, okay? So from there, we can extend that into activities and decisions that we make in our lives, okay? So if there's an animal who is in terrible pain, who's suffering from cancer or something, can a vegan put that animal to rest if there's no other option for the animal to get better? Yes, because that's not exploitative, okay? It's not exploitative. You're not exploiting the animal, you're not gaining from that, you're doing a service to the animal in the animal's best interest. But if you, as a vegan, you were horse racing and you endangered the horse by getting the horse to jump over these dangerous obstacles, and then the horse breaks their leg, and you assess that it would be cheaper to put down the horse, which is very common practice in horse racing, cheaper to kill the horse by putting a bullet or bolt gun through the head instead of fixing and mending that leg, is that vegan behavior? Is that acting on the doctrine of veganism? No. You put that animal in that situation deliberately to profit, to make money, to run a race, for entertainment. That's not in the animal's interest, okay? You can see how that doctrine, if you're following it sincerely, it will naturally extend into whatever activity you're going through in life. So that's veganism, okay? So vegans, put simply, are people, moral agents. So this doesn't extend to like toddlers and babies, it's moral agents. They have to be in control of their lives. People who are following the doctrine of veganism. So they are living in a way which, to the best of their ability, follows that one simple doctrine, that mankind should live without exploiting animals. That's the only thing vegans have in common with each other. So if you're someone who has been carrying around with them the opinion that, for example, vegans are so outspoken doing animal rights outreach. No, that's activists. Activists do that. A person can have two labels. You can assign two labels. Someone can be, like me, I could be a vegan and I could be an activist, okay? To say that vegans are all like that is an ignorant statement. It's kind of like a survivorship bias type thing. The vegans that you know of, who you know are vegans, are going to be vegans who are openly talking about it. The vegans that are low-key, that just go about their lives, why would you ever know that they're vegan? Okay? Why would you know? Would they communicate that through social media? No. I wanted to use that example particularly because that's one that I hear a lot, okay? Here's another one. Some people think that vegans are obsessed with health. Talking about health, they're always doing things that are trying to maximize health. Not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. Because that's not what defines veganism. Here's another one, that vegans are always lefties. They're always politically left-aligned, left-wing. There have been prominent vegans who have proven that that is not the case, okay? That's not what defines veganism. Vegans are simply people who live by the doctrine that they should live their lives without exploiting animals. Now, there are definitely strong overlaps with progressive social justice movements and things, and you can certainly see why social justice movements of the past have been very inspiring. And this is a concept I talk about a lot, the circle of consideration. Every social justice movement of the past, like women's rights, gay rights, ethnic equality, civil rights, they have all involved expanding our circle of consideration, humanity's circle of consideration, to include more people. I would also include in that children's rights, going back to the Victorian age where children didn't have the same rights that they do nowadays. And so that's something that veganism has in common with social justice movements of the past, is that it involves expanding one's circle of consideration. And in the collective consciousness of a people, it involves expanding our circle of consideration. But that's not to say people who are involved in social justice movements are all going to be vegan, right? And it also doesn't mean that all vegans are going to be on the same page when it comes to social justice of humans, because it is purely about this one doctrine. That is the only thing that all vegans have in common. And that means that if a vegan abuses an animal or participates or funds the abuse of an animal, a sentient animal, they are by definition not engaging in vegan behavior. I'm not going to diss them and say they're not vegan, because that's quite an incendiary remark that we often say. But what I will say is that behavior that they're engaging in is not vegan behavior. Where I can, I like to condemn actions and not people at their core. But of course, I understand that we need to categorize people at certain points. Sometimes we need to put people in categories. And so when we are categorizing people, is that guy a vegan or is he not a vegan? The way we can do that is to ask, are they living in line with that doctrine? If they're not, then we can categorize them as such. So now I'm going to flip this, because I think there's too much focus actually on veganism, and it ignores the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is what the majority of people on earth are, and what doctrine the majority of people on earth are following. If you think about like a software that you download or a piece of hardware, that hardware comes installed with a default setting. It's like a driver software, right? It's the manufacturer's defaults, otherwise it wouldn't operate, okay? So everyone, basically, when they are born and when they grow up through their developmental years, they are being taught a certain culture, a certain ideological practice. There's no such thing as a blank slate with a fully educated adult, okay? Every adult on this planet has this default setting, and it's an ideology. And just because it's popular doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's fair, doesn't mean it's just. And there is a name for it, and that is carnism, okay? And carnism is, at its core, it's a double standard. It's a form of speciesism which places human needs above any other sentient creature's needs. The one thing that all carnists have in common is that they are hypocrites, and they are living hypocritical lives. I'm only half joking when I say that. The pre-installed package of a carnist, and bear in mind, I was a carnist, okay? So I'm criticizing my past self talking about this. There are a few things that are pre-installed with a carnist. First of all is the acceptance of the status quo, that animals are more viewed as a material, like a livestock, a commodity, whose interest, if they even have an interest in this ideology, the interest of animals comes second to whoever claims ownership over that animal. So they're a slave class. We have slavery built in as a foundation in our social programming, okay? You just don't realize it, because the other thing that is installed in the carnist ideology is a kind of blindness to the plight of slave animals. And this is supported by most data and most people's lived experience. Most people do not think about animals. Even when they're performing acts of altruism, they don't pay for animal charities particularly. If they do pay for animal charities, the vast majority of those animals will be cats and dogs, like pets. and it's not represented in population size. And the other thing that's pre-installed with carnist ideology is human superiority. I can already anticipate that this will get the most pushback because you have this typical thing that carnists say, if I had to choose, I would choose a human's interests over a squirrel's interests. A real basic take, you know, something said by a real basic bro. First point to change that from being such a reductive statement. Who said you need to choose? You think you need to choose between a human's interest and an animal's interests? Most of the time, hurting animals actually goes against most humans' interests. There are many downsides to abusing animals. Secondly, any human's interests? So you would prioritize a pedophile's interest over a squirrel's interest? Interesting. Okay. I wouldn't. So I think we can expand upon that statement and see how ridiculous it is, right? And anyway, we can go down that road. I'm sure I'll get people fighting me in the comments about that, and I'm ready. But bringing it back, those are the only real distinctions. Everything else is a different point, makes a different point. But the defining characteristic of a vegan is that they practice a vegan doctrine. That doctrine being that mankind should live without exploiting animals. The defining characteristic of a carnist is that exploiting animals and abusing animals is okay if it's legal, I guess. If it's legal and socially acceptable, all right? So it's very much herd mentality, falling in line with the popular opinion of the day. If this is something you don't think about on a regular basis, I would invite you to think critically about the social programming that you have been indoctrinated to believe without question. That's what I would invite you to do. This is a call to action. This is an opportunity. The social programming that you were raised to accept without question, to accept unconditionally, without reason. There's no real reasoning behind this. It's just momentum-based social conformity, which if you do value the lives and dignities and sovereignty of all animals, you'd be a coward to turn your back on that now. That's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.